Vision 4. La télévision africaine.
Welcome to the 4 p.m. newscast on the Vision card. Going straight to the news without usual headlines with mixed feelings that have gripped the population of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon following the press release yesterday by the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, Ferdinand Gongo, on the orders of the President of the Republic ordering the discontinuance of the case against some Anglophone or English-speaking detainees following violence that were occurred in the northwest and southwest regions of the country since last October. We take you straight to the southwest region, where a southwest regional correspondent visited the families of Aya Paul Abine Agombala and others to gauge the atmosphere that reigns there following the release yesterday. Get her report.
Congo Felix Agbo, Fontem Niba, Paul Aya Abine and some other persons arrested in relation to the violence committed in recent months in the northern southwest regions are on this day, the 30th of August 2017, released through a presidential decree. Visiting their various residences in Boya, at Barrister Congo Felix home at Federal Quarters, Ebai Michael, his nephew, says he's extremely happy.
So after the decree of yesterday, the family members were so happy that at last something like that could come up. We've been praying for that and hoping one day that we could be released and join his family members. It's been so difficult in his absence as a head of the house, or head of the family. We missed him.
At Dr. Fontaine's house at Santa Barbara, we met his daughter, our LOVELINE.
Receiving the news, in fact, I was overwhelmed. I shouted here onto as if, I don't know, I'm even short of word expression just to express the joy for receiving the news. In his absence, really, it was really a burden. So the way we live in the house as a father, the way he lives with us, we are always joking, playing, so we really miss those things.
Then the home of Justice Aya Paul, his niece Aya Claudine, gave her reactions.
When I heard the news, I was so happy because he has been in hell. Yeah, he has been to hell and back. We didn't even know that he'll come out alive. Because the entire family has been down. He is alive. He is like a god to us. From the youngest to the oldest person in our family.
At the various homes, preparations have been carried out in order to welcome them.
In short, we are preparing. We are now, as you can see when you are coming or doing laundry, I have to clean the house, I have to clean his room. We have to do so many things for him. And we have to welcome him as a hero himself.
The family members did not fail to send out their message to the president.
Well, for the president, the authorities, I would say I thank them for the decision that they have taken to bring peace and calmness in the country.
I have no message for the authorities because they have only done what they were supposed to do. Yes. First, Aya was arrested illegally. Aya is not a criminal.
According to the press release from the Presidency of the Republic, the decision to release these people is in line with the numerous measures already taken by the government to address the concern voiced by the people.
We now take you to Bamenda in the northwest region of Cameroon, where the atmosphere seems happy and waiting for their family members. The doubt come in part of the release that say and some others. So there is a lot of doubt in the air on whether all of them are going to be released as legal and political preoccupations keep lingering into their minds. Chu Emmanuel.
Following the decision of President Paul Biya to halt proceedings pending before the Yaoundé Military Tribunal against Baritan Kongo Felix, Fontem Neba, and Aya Paul Abine, amongst other persons arrested in relation to the socio-political upheavals in the northwest and southwest regions, Cameroonians are now optimistic that a dialogue forum will be created in order to end the stalemate in the English-speaking regions.
True, that's what's happened. I think it's coming a little too late. But at last, what the SGF stood for over 9 months has come to pass. We will take that for the court to reopen school resumption, which is what he will tell you that he has done, because I have that very strong belief that when you are fighting with a person over a thing, he gives you one thing, take and continue with the struggle for other things.
The release of these detainees comes to add to other numerous academic and judicial measures put in place by government to build the spirit of patriotism, unity and multiculturalism as against violence, illiteracy and secession as propagated by some individuals whose children school out of the country. The release comes at a moment when education stakeholders are seriously at work with government to ensure that schools effectively resume in all parts of the country, especially in the northwest and southwest regions. While some people are jovial with the presidential action, others are questioning the term discontinuance, whether it means total freedom for the detainees or temporary release. Though efforts to get to legal luminaries have so far been futile, we will be certainly bringing you legal explanations in our subsequent news editions.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Not to say that the man on the street was not left out in the northwest region as we get their reactions.
Giving this order for this case to discontinue will really send children back to school, because many are still asking, why were they detained? They were fighting for a cause. Has a solution been given? Teachers went on strike. Lawyers are still not going to court. What is their problem? Is it that these people should be released? Or they had problems at the table? If yes, releasing these people, if at all they are being released, is not the solution.
As it will be the way, we will fast na day and night, or even if it even a 40 days, because we know how both we thank God, because our God is really a living God.
I was more than happy. Because we praying that at one moment in time. So I'm really happy. I just wish the government had to
Still on the judicial system, the newly appointed Supreme Court judges have been challenged to use their experience to improve on the justice system in Cameroon. The call was made yesterday by the president of the Supreme Court, Mekobe Sone, during the installation ceremony of the newly appointed Prince Mundi Tanda with the details.
The ceremony unfolded in a purely Republican character, respecting strict legal rituals. In a speech as he chaired the event, the president of the Supreme Court, Daniel Sone Mekobe, urged the newly installed to use their huge experience and wealth of knowledge to impact the country's justice system positively, which has been suffering from numerous setbacks. The 26 super-scale magistrates, who comprises of 18 sitting magistrates and 8 prosecuting magistrates, were appointed to the country's highest jurisdiction on June 7, 2017 by a presidential decree following the last session of the Higher Judicial Council of Cameroon. Amongst them include Ebuli Mathias, the first common law magistrate to mount the presidency of the judicial bench of the Supreme Court, including the Vice Advocate General of the said court, Madame Limunga Itambi Sarah Amugu Bellinga, wife of the media guru Jean-Pierre Amugu Bellinga, who graced the event with his majestic presence amongst top government officials and representatives of the president of both houses of parliament. The newly installed could only be grateful for the confidence bestowed on them.
Very good, because you have followed the Attorney General, who said that to arrive in the Supreme Court is a success, is arrive to the pantheon of the justice.
It's just wonderful. You know, it's a solemn ceremony, and like in the president's allocution, is the dream of every magistrate to reach the Supreme Court.
Nonetheless, it is time to get to work, as the task is daunting.
Well, like a magistrate, you are ready to go to court, you are ready to study your files, and that's it.
The event equally culminated with the swearing-in of some 160 young magistrates recently integrated into the Magistracy Corps of Cameroon.
A reporter caught up with some newly sworn-in magistrates and tried to get their impressions on their new integration. Get their reactions.
Very elated that today I've been sworn in as a full magistrate, and I pray with this position I'll be able to serve the Cameroonian people impartially and render justice as serving the Lord and not man, in full respect of the law.
As a magistrate, I'm promising to render justice with equality to all, especially in a section as accounts, which is very necessary for the development of Cameroon. We need to make sure that these accounts are fair and present a true image of what development is being carried out in Cameroon. It's supposed to be a reflection of what we see on the ground. So we are going to make sure that we do all our best to give fair decisions and judgments with respect to the accounts that will be presented to us.
After the installation ceremony and swearing in, it was time to feast with family members and friends who have in one way or the other encouraged them to reach where they are today. This was the case with Madame Sarah Limunga Amugu Bellinga, who did hers at the Yaoundé Hilton Hotel, during which we had the Chacha Eluwe traditional dance group from Bakure that showcased there with many other dances from other regions of the country, just trying to showcase what is commonly called in Cameroon as Vivre Ensemble. Priska Ngase now in the following report makes us live the atmosphere that reigned there yesterday.
Madame l'avocat général, soyez la bienvenue in
As she made her way to the reception ground, the newly commissioned Advocate General at the Supreme Court, Madame Sarah Limunga Amugu, was joyously welcomed by the Chacha Eluwe traditional dance group, accompanied by her husband. Getting into the hall, she was given warm embraces and words of congratulation by her VIP guests. Present at the classic ceremony was the host, Mr. Jean-Pierre Amugu Bellinga, CEO of the group L'Anecdote, the Minister of Economy, Planning and Regional Development, Louis-Paul Motaze, the Minister Delegate at the Presidency in charge of Special Duties, Philippe Bagamboa, the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Defense in charge of the National Gendarmerie, Jean-Baptiste Bokam, Minister Paul Atanganji, Honorable Paul Eric Njogwe, amongst other high-standing personalities. The event, which saw a great mobilization of the staff of the group L'Anecdote, served as a moment of discussion in a relaxed mood between Mrs. Sarah Amugu and her guests. The event reached its climax when Mr. and Mrs. Amugu joined the Chacha Eluwe dance group in the company of their guests. The installation of Madame Sarah Limunga Amugu is seen by many as a sign of hard work.
I know Miss Amuk Bellinga, I know also her husband. There are people I really appreciate.
She is very worthy of admiration.
She did it very well, and now she has been promoted in the Supreme Court.
Being a mother of 3, her sons are proud of her.
Proud of my mom. I'm so proud of what she has accomplished. It's not a surprise, we're waiting for it after her work and everything.
After communing with her guests, it was time for them to say goodbye, and the dancing continued.
We now take you to other news now, where the Cameroon Post and Telecommunication Post has signed a partnership agreement with the Nigerian-based firm InterSwitch of digital economy in Cameroon. The agreement signed yesterday at the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications will go a long way to eradicate expenses incurred by the Cameroonians in the carrying out of their financial transactions. Our reporter Chu Emmanuel assisted in the signing ceremony and put together the full package for the 4 p.m. newscast.
During the Digital Economy Forum held in Yaoundé in May 2017, a protocol of understanding between Cameroon Post and Telecommunication (CAMPOST) and InterSwitch was signed for the installation, exploitation and management of financial electronic commutators on the network of CAMPOST so as to furnish financial services, establish proximity and promote financial inclusion. It is in order to implement this protocol agreement that another contract has been signed by the 2 companies to enhance the development of digital economy in Cameroon.
We will build the switch, we will run it, we will manage it, and then we're going to build and put in place collection solutions that aid transfers, ease of payments.
According to the director of CAMPOST, Pierre Kardak, his company will put electronic post infrastructure through its data center at the service of partners who will offer products and financial inclusion that understand banking services. But how will this be of direct benefit to Cameroonians?
If you can see, only 8% of Cameroon is bankable, that own bank accounts. Only about 5% use it. In terms of Cameroonians will be able to benefit from something effective but cheap. Thank you.
The win-win partnership will have as coordinator of its activities the government of Cameroon, which will also assure traceability of operations and financial transactions for the benefit of all.
We now take you beyond national boundaries, where Africa's first elected female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has promised to actively support female candidates in upcoming elections. This decision follows a fall in the number of female gender in some top management positions in his country. Abiyon student journalist and internship Belinda Zhu tells us more.
For about 10 days, Lapsigiro, a herdsman in Kenya, has been living in a forest alongside his children and elderly mother. He found himself in this situation after the attack by security forces in his hometown of Laikipia, where his house, livestock and cattle were burnt and killed respectively. He is now forced to live in the open with his family.
We are forced to live under the trees. We have no peace and nowhere to turn. Those who should be protecting us are killing us.
Like him, other herdsmen are victims of this barbaric act carried out by Kenyan security forces.
I feel like an orphan child. The killing of my livestock returns me back many years. All my struggles over the years are now lost. Our government has really wronged us.
Most of those who lived in Laikipia North have lost their lives. The survivors admit that the operation is aimed at forcing them out of this town for reasons yet unknown.
We now take you to Kenya. You bear with me that was instead Kenya, where herdsmen are accusing security forces for killing their cattle. We now take you back to Liberia, where first African elected President Ellen Johnson has promised to help women to get to top management position, and of course in other presidential elections or political affairs or positions in the country. Student journalist on internship Belinda Ju tells us more.
And legislative elections to take place this October in Liberia will witness a different turn as first ever elected African female leader, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has promised to support female candidates in both presidential and legislative elections. Her declarations were registered earlier this month, but appears to be too late according to the Liberian community. It is estimated that out of the 1,026 candidates, only 163 are female, with only one lady competing for the presidential post, where 20 men are in. President Sirleaf lamented on the fact that there is a low number of women elected in office during a meeting earlier this month, with 152 female contenders. In 2005, when she won over ex-footballer George Weah at presidential elections, only 13 women were elected to the national legislature, and the number dropped in 2011. This time around, people fear that the situation may be worse in October 10th after the elections.
We now take you to a sports pitch where the indomitable Lions of Cameroon will tomorrow play a World Cup qualifying match against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. This in Oya, and a lady on the beat for this story is Joyce Dainangwang, who went down the streets of Yaoundé asking Cameroonians to give their own on the match that will take place tomorrow. Get her report.
Going down the streets of Vogada this morning, it was a question of sampling views on the leg-away match in which Cameroon will face Nigeria this Friday. According to Nigerians there, the victory is theirs. Many are apprehensive over the ability of Cameroon, current African champions, to defeat the Super Eagles of Nigeria. According to them, Victor Moses, Michael Obi, William Trustekong are way more than just a boost to the Super Eagles. Nevertheless, the indomitable Lions have had more time spent together as a team and are likely going to be more cohesive, they say. Lions depend more on their technical superiority. After the leg-away match to be played come Friday, September 1 at 5 p.m., both sides are scheduled to meet again in a reverse fixture come September 4 in Yaoundé.
On that note, that we call it quit for the 4 p.m. newscast on the Vision Cat. Not forgetting, tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. you will have in your favorite program Meeting Point, on which we'll be talking about after the release and goodwill of government. What next? It will be at 4:30 tomorrow. Stay tuned. It has been the news.